Arsenal crash out of the FA Cup, prompting more questions about the squad, our transfer plans for the month, and whether we have enough within the ranks to go on and actually win silverware this season. We'll dissect another really disappointing result and performance on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. But first, a message from our partners. This video is brought to you by Stocks FC. Stocks FC is the football stock market where you can buy stocks in your favourite players and earn cash rewards based on their real-life performances. To get you started, they're giving away 5 free stocks to every user that signs up this month, offering you the chance to familiarise yourself with the platform. Buy stocks in young players you fancy to prove themselves and watch their stocks rise, or invest in those you see as solid performers who will maintain their value. Earn weekly dividend payments every time your players score goals, make assists and play key passes. Your free loan stocks are eligible for payouts for a month, so why not give it a go? To claim your 5 free loan stocks and begin your journey, scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description. I'll be taking you along on my journey throughout our upcoming videos. Join me on the ride, Stocks FC. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. I'm home. I'm in from the cold. You can see my face has gone all red where I've gone from like cold into heat. Like it is horrible out there, which added to the pain and misery that was placed upon us today by our team failing to put away a really, really bad Man United team, despite having more than enough opportunities and more than enough chances to do so. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot to break down. And as you guys know, that normally, because of my work commitments, I do tend to record these podcasts the morning after. 2 reasons why I'm recording it now. So on Sunday night, approaching 9 p.m. First reason is I'm so frustrated by what I saw today and what I saw against Newcastle combined that I don't feel I can sleep on this one. I feel like I kind of need to get stuff off my chest. I feel like this is going to be a therapy session for myself where I just let it all out, and hopefully some people will listen and conversate with me in the chat and give me feedback and maybe tell me where you think I'm going wrong. Tell me where you think maybe, you know, we're looking down the right lines. Anyway, that reason. And obviously I've got something on tomorrow morning that I need to deal with. So that means that if I did do it tomorrow morning, it wouldn't be with you until sort of much later in the day. So I figured this was the best time to do it. This was the best opportunity to kind of jump on and, as I say, give you all my feelings. So it might not be as measured as it normally is on the main pod. We did put out a match day reaction piece a little bit earlier on, which if you're a patron of ours, you'll be able to listen to, where it's a little bit more raw. It was obviously right after the final whistle. So there is, a bit more emotion in those ones, I guess. But I'm anticipating that we're going to probably get quite emotional and animated on this episode as well. Look, there are loads and loads and loads of you in the live chat, and I promise I'll take a load of your questions. I'll bring up your thoughts as we run through what I've got noted down for tonight's agenda. But one thing I do want to say is that I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of abuse in the chat being thrown at different people. And listen, you can say whatever you like about me. I don't care. I'm big enough and ugly enough to take it. And it's part of the course. I understand that it's part and parcel of the role and the job that I do. People are going to do that, right? It's no bother for me. But what I don't want to see is people abusing each other in the live chat. I don't want people that come and listen to this podcast or tune into this channel feeling as though they don't want to because there are trolls in the chat going at them. So I will use the magic block button if I have to. I can't always see every message in the chat because I'm talking at the same time, but there is a couple of admins in there as well. So feel free, guys, if you think anyone's overstepped the mark, please do block them and do not worry about it. You have my blessing. Anyway, let's start with the team selection, shall we? I think that's always a good place to start when sort of trying to break down and analyze a game. Mikel Arteta went with David Raya in goal. He went with Jurrien Timber, William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, and Lewis Skelly at the back. I was delighted to see Lewis Skelly start because I really like him and I think he's doing brilliantly. And I think his development in recent times has been incredible. I've really, really enjoyed him sort of breaking into the team and then sort of establishing himself, which he's done wonderfully well. But obviously, there was a drawback to him being in the side today because he was in the side not solely, he might have started anyway, but partly because Ricardo Calafiori has got another muscle injury. And when we sort of looked into Ricardo Calafiori in the summer and we did what's called our scouting report, don't know if we'll be doing any of them in January because it doesn't look like we're going to sign anyone. But when we did our scouting report on Ricardo Calafiori, we highlighted injury history as a major red flag. And people spent a lot of time focusing actually on the knee injury that he suffered and, the long-term knee injury that, threatened his career at one stage. That's how it was reported in Italy at the time. And ever since he's come to Arsenal, it's just been one problem after the other. And, when people are sitting here in January looking back at our summer window and saying we didn't quite do enough, they're going to look at the likes of Ricardo Calafiori, who we signed, who just doesn't feature anywhere near enough. They're going to look at Mikel Merino, who started in midfield today and I thought had a really, really underwhelming game again. Jorginho and Odegaard were the other two components of that midfield trio. And then Gabby Jesus started the game on the right-hand side. Gabriel Martinelli was playing from the left-hand side and Kai Havertz was in attack. The bench was pretty strong today. Declan Rice was on it. Thomas Partey was on it. Raheem Sterling was on it. Leandro Trossard was on it. Zinchenko, Tierney, Kivior, Neto, and Butler Oyedeji, along with Neto, did I say Neto? Made up the rest of it. Look, I think people are obviously really, really frustrated by what they watched this afternoon at the Emirates. And at a time where all the calls have been for Arsenal to go out and bring in another attacker, where that debate that's been rumbling on and on and on and on about whether or not we need this killer in front of goal, this out-and-out striker, on a day when you have a ton of chances like we did and somehow lose the game, those types of debates and those types of arguments, they're going to come up. And we can't shy away from that. We have to discuss it. We have to get into it. We have to break it down. I think if you look at last season and the season before, we scored a lot of goals, generally speaking. And because we scored a lot of goals, whenever that argument was brought up, whenever that debate was sort of had, Arsenal could always rebuff that. And those, myself included, who were defensive of Mikel Arteta's building of his attack and the way that he set it up. And what I mean by that is the fact that it isn't about one man or two men, it is about a collective. I'd always have pushed back at that time and said, yeah, but look how many goals we're scoring. Well, right now, we're not scoring goals. We are scoring a decent amount of goals if you add up all of our goals, divide them by the number of games we're playing and average it out. Then it doesn't actually look that bad. But the problem is that there's too many games in which we're finding it incredibly difficult to score. So what I guess I'm trying to say is that when you look at our goal tally this season, which isn't disastrous, by the way, there is a bit of stat pad in there. There are games that were won comfortably, and then we managed to score an extra 2-3 goals to kind of make our goal tally look great. But then if you break it down game by game, there are too many games in which we're having problems, not only creating chances, but taking them. And the reason I say creating as well is because it's really easy to look at possession numbers and say, Arsenal were really, really dominant. Okay, but how much of that possession actually amounted in a clear goal scoring opportunity? Because Kai Havertz missed some chances today, as did others. Declan Rice missed a brilliant chance with his head in that second half. He missed one with his left foot, I think, as well, in the second half, where he dragged it just wide of the far post. We're missing chances now, yes. But there's been a lot of instances this season where we just haven't created the chances. And so I've always maintained that the problem is partly that we can't finish, but it's partly that we're not creating enough either. And so the small margins are coming into play. You only create 3 good chances in a game, or you better take 2 of them if you're going to win the game, or at least be comfortable in winning the game. If you look at the stats from today's game, and I've got them up in front of me now, Arsenal had 70% of the ball, 26 shots at goal, 7 of which were on target, 55 touches inside the Manchester United box, 10 blocked shots, 26 shots in total, 10 of them were blocked, 7 of them were on target, 9 of them were off target. Defensively, we made 16 tackles, 71 duels won in comparison to their 57. I'm trying to find the XG stat. Has anybody got the XG numbers in front of them? Because I'd be really, really interested to see what that looks like. Hold on, I'll try and find it now. I should have been more prepared. This is the problem when you don't have time to prepare the podcast and you just jump on and do it off the cuff. Let me just click on the Arsenal page and let me have a look at this, because I'd be really, really interested to see what the XG looks like today. Hold on, I'm just logging on to SofaScore, which I find is normally quite good. If I go to statistics, here we are. Do they have an XG one? They should have, shouldn't they? No? Do they not have an XG? Come on, I want an XG stat, guys. No, I can't see one. Anyway, someone find that for me. Someone in the live chat, find me the XG stat while you've got the time. But basically, the point I'm making here is that I'm fed up of hearing about XG. I'm fed up of hearing about how much we deserved to win games that we didn't win, because sometimes you will find yourself in a situation where you played really well and it just didn't go your way. That's the very nature of football. It's the very nature of the sport that we all love and that we all follow. But when it becomes a common theme, when you're constantly coming away from games saying, yes, we've got, we dominated the game in all the metrics and we were by far the better team. We were brilliant, but you didn't win the game. Nobody cares how brilliant you were in other aspects and other elements of the game. You need quality in the final third. And based on the recent evidence, and that's not to say that all of the players that we've got are duds and that they're never going to be up to it or anything like that. Based on the current form of so many of our attacking players right now, we just do not have the required quality in the final third to make chances, clear chances. We made a few today, in fairness, but this is a much wider problem. We're going back a little while when we're talking about these issues. So it's that. But then you've got to take the chances. And unfortunately today, Kai Havertz did not take his chances. He had 2 really, really good opportunities and, of course, missed the penalty in the shootout. Martin Odegaard missed the penalty. Let's not pretend that didn't happen. Declan Rice missed a couple of really, really good chances. As a collective, and I keep saying this because what I absolutely hate, right, and what I really despise is when people try to scapegoat others. So I knew today that when Kai Havertz missed the penalty in the shootout, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew that he was going to be abused. I knew that there's a good chance that his partner was going to get abused, because there are so many, and excuse my language, scumbags online that think that they can go around and say whatever they want, hide behind a keyboard, hide behind an anonymous profile. Whatever you think of Kai Havertz as a player, whether you think he's good enough or not, whether you want to pin what happened today on him or not, that's kind of neither here nor there. If you want to have that opinion, that's fine. But if you're going online and abusing his missus and sending her messages like the ones that she shared on social media, you're a disgusting human being. And, like, to be honest with you, like, you're just a waste of space. I'm trying to think of ways of saying it without dropping F-bombs galore right now. That's how I feel. I hate stuff like that, because I think it's like it's a consequence of social media. Like, social media has created a world in which people feel it's okay to say stuff that would have got them a punch in the face back in the good old days and in the real world. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Anyway, let's break the game down in a kind of chronological order, if we can. Lackluster first half is what I've got. My first bullet point. It was pedestrian, wasn't it? Like, we moved the ball too slowly at times. We found it really, really difficult to find spaces, to create spaces. We found it difficult to breach the Manchester United back five. And make no mistake about it, it was a back five. I don't blame Ruben Amorim for turning up and playing that way. Lots and lots of teams are doing it at the minute, and they're doing it to really, really good effect. And Ruben Amorim, for all the crap that we talk about Man United, he does have some good players at his disposal. Like he does have some good players at his disposal. And, they defended really well. They were really well organized. They obviously took a lot of encouragement from what happened at Anfield last time out. They've had a whole week to prepare for this game, a whole week to prepare for Arsenal specifically, which I think really helps. And yeah, they made it really difficult. But I kind of went in at half time, and we'll talk about the Jesus injury in a minute. We'll come on to that in a second, so I'm not glossing over it. But I did go in at half time and sort of hear people as I was walking into the kind of media lounge saying, "Oh, that was rubbish, wasn't it?" And, Arsenal must improve and all the rest of it. And whilst I agree with that, by the way, I do think that Arsenal in that first half, as I called it pedestrian, didn't I? I said that the tempo was too slow. I said that there was no zip, there was no rhythm to our game. We weren't moving the ball quick enough to pull people out of positions, etc., etc. We weren't brave enough in some of our passing. We weren't trying to break the lines early enough, in my opinion. But I kind of went in at half time thinking, okay, well, if we continue to control and we continue to dominate in the way that we have, the chances will come. I wasn't that panicked in the first half or at the end of the first half because I felt like it was a really good, solid defensive display from Man United. Are there things that we could have done better? And are people going to say that we've gone stale? Absolutely, they are. And that's fine. Valid opinion to have. But I wasn't massively worried at halftime. What I was worried about was the injury to Gabby Jesus. Because, I obviously told you about this before. I interviewed Gabby Jesus after he scored in the first Palace game. You remember the two Palace games where he was just on absolute fire? I interviewed him and we were talking about sort of, what's happened to him, the kind of the journey that he's been on with the injuries and all the rest of it. And the first thing he said to me was, I feel like physically I'm finally at my best. And that was speaking to the host of injuries that he's had, the knee problems, the recurrence of that, other issues related to that along the way. And I was really pleased for him because technically that night, everything came off for him. Everything that he did worked. He had the Midas touch. But you could see that physically he was a different animal. And ever since that point, he's looked far more effective than he had for the 6 months prior to that. That's the honest truth. So when you see a player finally start to rediscover his form, he didn't start the game at Newcastle. Let's be fair to him, but he was playing on the right-hand side today. I felt like he could have offered us something today. I felt like he was trying to make things happen, that he was one of the more lively Arsenal players in that first half. And then he gets an injury like that, an injury that looks deadly serious, an injury that looks like it's going to see him sidelined for months rather than weeks based on what we've seen so far. Mikel Arteta was asked about this in his press conferences, and for him to say it looks bad, for him to say we're really concerned, we're really worried, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. To give that away the way he has, it means there is real concern within the Arsenal management that this guy's going to be out for a long, long time again. And what does that do? Well, that increases the need to go into the transfer market, doesn't it? That increases the demand now from so many fans that Arsenal go into the transfer market and do something of significance in that attacking department. Now, I spoke to Mikel Arteta after today's game as well. And my question, or I had two questions. My first question was about the North London derby, and I tried to kind of, make the point to Mikel, is that almost one of the better games that you can have on the horizon, because it's one that you don't really need to get the players, or you shouldn't need to get the players up for. It's one that you probably won't need to get the fans up for either. But if you win that, it can completely flip the mood at the football club. He agreed that that's, I think he said that's a good way of looking at it. I like that perspective. But then I asked him about his comments that he made in the lead up to this game. In the pre-match press conference, Mikel Arteta gave off the vibe that Arsenal had no plans to go and spend big in this January window. Now, he didn't say that outright, but he kind of suggested that that was the case. And he made the point that there are restrictions there that Arsenal need to deal with, and there are restrictions there that are preventing Arsenal from maybe going out and doing, I guess, what he wants. If you try and read between the lines. There were some reports going around about the financial numbers and the sort of dealings around the club, which suggested that Arsenal were nowhere near the PSR stuff. I'm told, having tried to kind of investigate that a little bit further, that actually there's some inaccuracies in that, because there's some major stuff that's not been taken into consideration. So don't know what the exact situation looks like when it comes to what we can and can't spend. I couldn't possibly tell you with any assurance. But I asked Mikel Arteta if, following his comments in that press conference, where he seemed to hint that significant business was unlikely this month, whether that reflected his view personally that the squad's okay and we don't need anything, or if that was the club's position. I gave him the opportunity to say, or to make it clear, that it is about restrictions, that it is about the club, and it's not necessarily about Mikel's want or need to, or in his mind, to go out and bring in a player. Now, first of all, that should be clear to a lot of people, but I don't think it is. I think a lot of people are dressing up this transfer issue, if you like, or spending issue as a Mikel Arteta problem. What manager doesn't want to go out and bring in players that are going to improve his team and help him going through a difficult patch? Like, you got to think about it that way, right? It's like, some things are no-brainers. Of course he wants better players. Of course he wants more better players. Like, if you told me you're going to go out, you're going to come round and you're going to swap my car for a brand new Mercedes, I'm taking the Mercedes. Who doesn't want the best of the best? So this idea that Mikel Arteta doesn't want these players is mad. I gave him the opportunity to make it clear that that was not his stance, but maybe the club's. Obviously, he didn't do that. He said, it's the reality right now. We're not close to anything, and we're focused on the players that we have. The club is always working, and we're always working to try and improve our team, but it has to be possible with our resources and with players that can make us better. He got the resources bit in there again. So, yeah, make of that what you will. So anyway, back to halftime. I've digressed a little bit. Back to halftime, 0-0 at the break. And we come out in the second half and did a great deal change at the very beginning of the second half. I don't think it did, to be honest with you. I thought the game was going in a very similar pattern. Only 7 minutes into the second half, though, Manchester United take the lead. This is a big, bad mistake from Gabriel. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. I absolutely adore Gabriel. I think he's been one of our most consistent players during this period of progress. And I think he's someone that certainly has credit in the bank with me. And so when he made the mistake, I was obviously gutted at the fact that it saw us go behind in the game. But as we will come on to in a bit, he did rectify that up the other end of the pitch. But he just comes out, he goes to sort of meet the ball. And I think he gets caught in two minds as to whether he should sort of send the ball down the line or try and knock the ball inside for one of his teammates to pick it up. And in the end, he does neither. And that allows United to break forward with Garnacho. Garnacho cuts it back to Bruno Fernandes, and take nothing away from Bruno Fernandes. That is an outrageously good finish from him to put Manchester United in front. Then Diogo Dalot is sent off, and you start to feel the Emirates crowd come to life. You start to feel the Emirates crowd come to life. You start to feel the tide turning a little bit. And all of a sudden, I felt much, much better. Much better about the game and much better about what I thought was to come. Diogo Dalot absolutely deserved to be sent off. It was a wild lunge to make. I don't think there was a great deal of contact, but it was a silly lunge to make when you're already on a yellow card. I think they were lucky that Rasmus Højlund wasn't sent off for that elbow in Saliba's face. I think they were very, very lucky that Manuel Ugarte wasn't sent off for putting his head in Kai Havertz's face when Arsenal were awarded a penalty a little bit later on. Look, before I get onto all of that stuff, what I have to say is, if you are against VAR, take your Arsenal hat off for a minute and watch that game honestly, objectively, and then tell me that we don't need VAR. We absolutely do. Andy Madley was shocking. His team of officials was shocking. They got so much wrong during that game, including the penalty that they gave us. That was wrong. We'll come on to that in a minute. I keep digressing today. Look, so Diogo Dalot goes off, and 2 minutes later, Arsenal are back on level terms. And I said to you that you felt just a couple of minutes before that the Emirates Stadium come into life. Gabriel goes and sticks one in the back of the net, albeit via a deflection, and Arsenal are back on level terms, and you're looking at them now to go on and win the game. Boom. Then they get a penalty. Wasn't a penalty. I can be honest. I can, take my Arsenal hat off for a minute and be honest in my analysis of that particular incident. Does Harry Maguire do anywhere near enough to warrant Andy Madley pointing to the spot there? No. Kai Havertz goes over. It's difficult to know how much force there is in that type of contact when you are watching it back on a slow motion replay and all the rest of it. And it's difficult to tell whether it's enough to take the player down. But if that was given against us, I'd be furious. I'd be incensed. I'd be calling for, the referee to be punished, etc., etc. It's not a penalty for me. Anyway, Odegaard steps up, and Odegaard is just going through this really, really difficult patch of form at the moment where nothing he does is coming off, where he doesn't look quite at it physically. He seemed to have some kind of injury issue today that he was carrying as well, which doesn't fill me with confidence going into the midweek game against Spurs as well. But he steps up to take the penalty. I'm pretty sure that was the first penalty that Martin Odegaard's missed in his professional career. So if you're questioning why he took it, well, you know that he shares them with Bukayo Saka. It's mainly Saka, but Odegaard from time to time does take them. So it came as no surprise to me, no shock to me. What was a surprise was that Altay Bayindir managed to get down and make the save. It's not the greatest penalty from Martin Odegaard, make no mistake about that, but it's still far enough in the corner for you to expect it to go in, if that makes sense. It's really good from Bayindir. You got to give him his flowers for that. So we spurned the opportunity to go 2-1 up, and then you felt the mood go again, and you just feel the energy being sucked out and drained out of everybody again. Players are starting to wane in terms of their sort of physical levels. We're making changes. We're trying to, find a breakthrough. Man United are not offering a great deal, but you're always wary. You always have it in the back of your mind that they can hit you on the counter-attack, etc., etc. And we ultimately blow a whole host of chances to win the game. There's the two Havertz ones. He's got to hit the target on both occasions. Anything other than hitting the target there is completely unacceptable. Because whether you're an out-and-out goal scorer or not, a player playing at a club like Arsenal at this level, you have got to have the technical quality in those moments to hit the target. You have to. It's inexcusable. Declan Rice drags a shot wide and then has a header saved by Bayindir, a save that loads of people in the stadium were lauding. For me, it's straight at him. You've got the whole goal to aim at. You've got ages to watch that ball coming over. You've got all the time in the world to time your jump, to make sure that you head it back across the goal. For me, you've got to finish that. You've got to bury it. So you add those 4 opportunities to the penalty miss as well. And then you think about in extra time where we had the ball smashed across the face of goal and Trossard's about to tuck it in and De Ligt is there to sort of clear it right at the last minute. You just knew that it wasn't going to be our day. And when it went to penalties, I was very, very confident in my own mind that Manchester United were going to go on and win it because it just felt like it was their day. Just felt like it was their day, didn't it? I'm just having a look at my bullet points. What have I missed? Look, I guess I've talked a lot about some of the incidents in the game, but I think the wider point here is that we're very, very clearly missing something in attack. And based on what we're reading, based on what we're hearing, and this could change, and it might be that Arsenal do have a plan. It might be that what happened to Gabriel Jesus is going to force their hand, is going to force them into the transfer market this month. But it's clear to everybody that we need that. And if Mikel Arteta, look, I get what he's doing. He's not going to come and sit there and say, my attackers aren't good enough. My players aren't good enough. That's not how you get people to follow you. That's not how you create the right culture, the right environment. It's not how you get people's buy-in. And I guess his style of management is not to kick his players when they're down. He needs to lift them up. He needs to find a way to do that. But the further down he kicks them and beats them with his words after games like that, the harder that's going to be to do. So I understand why he says what he says. And I know it winds fans up. Like, I went into the radio interviews today knowing exactly what he was going to say, knowing that he was going to say that it's unbelievable that we didn't win that game. And while a lot of the stats and facts around it do back that up, putting the ball in the back of the net is just as big a part, if not a bigger part of football, than how much possession you have, than how many shots you have. And also, it's the quality of the possession. It's the quality of the shots that you have. You can knock the ball around between your two centre halves and your fullbacks for 70 odd minutes non-stop. And if the other team are only interested in sitting back and protecting their goal, they're not even going to come out and confront you. So there's possession and there's quality possession. There's chances and there's quality chances. What was different about today in comparison to maybe Newcastle is that there was the quality of chances for us to have won the game. And that's the bit that causes me, to then question the quality of our finishers. That's the bit for me. That's the bit for me. So yeah, really, really frustrating. I'm getting frustrated by hearing the same thing after every game. And it's unbelievable that we didn't win today. Yeah, but we didn't. So you need to find a way as a manager, as players, as a group, as a collective to rediscover that confidence in front of goal. Because if you don't, this season is very, very quickly going to get away from us. Very, very quickly. We've, for me, given ourselves an absolute mountain to climb up at Newcastle. I can't see us getting through. I just can't see it as positive as I want to be. I can't see it. And obviously, we're out of the FA Cup now. Now, I know that people would have said, and I'm, sort of going by what I read online and what people are saying. I know that people would have told you that the Premier League and the Champions League were the priority, and they absolutely are. But this is a team that desperately needs silverware. And our two biggest chances of winning silverware, because they are obviously less difficult to achieve, is the domestic cup competitions. And we got all the way to the semi-final only to choke in the semi-final first leg and give ourselves a mountain to climb. Although I don't want to go too big on that, because I wouldn't put it past Arsenal going up there and turning it around, and then the mood is completely different and you're in a Wembley final. That could still happen. Stay positive, have some belief around that. But we're out of the FA Cup. That's gone. And I think because of the association and affiliation that we as fans have with this competition, we find it quite difficult to take. I know that what Arsenal were doing today was really good in terms of the No More Red campaign. I know it's for a great thing. But surely there have got to be other ways of raising and bringing awareness to this cause than changing our kit at home. I don't know. It sounds daft and it sounds like it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference, but I think it does. I really do think it does. You just had the feeling today when you arrived at Emirates Stadium that things were not all right, that things weren't going to be okay. First, it was the away allocation wrapping all the way around the bottom tier of the clock end as far as the press box. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Then it was a really lackluster pedestrian first half. Then the horrible injury to Gabriel Jesus. Then it felt like the tide was turning for a bit, and very, very quickly it went back to a feeling of frustration, disappointment. The atmosphere today was crap. It was crap. I'm being completely blunt and honest. It was crap. You never, ever felt like the crowd were with the team today. When we got to the penalty shootout, as soon as Kai Havertz missed, then obviously the shootout wasn't done at that point. But as soon as Kai Havertz missed, there were people heading for the exits again. And it just feels like in the stadium right now, and in the stadium, online, wherever you turn, it feels like the love towards this Arsenal team right now is conditional. And it shouldn't be that way. Over the last couple of years, they've shown enough spirit, enough passion, enough fight for us to, I think, feel the need to stick with them in a period and during a time like this, where it's not going right, where things are going wrong, where they really, really need us. I'm not Jordan Hurley in the chat says can't blame the fans. I'm not blaming the fans. I'm not blaming them for us not putting the ball in the back of the net. I'm not blaming them for us not going out and getting the attacker that I strongly believe that we need. But as fans, your love for your team, guys, it can't be conditional. Like, it shouldn't be that, you go through a little bump in the road. Like, we were unbeaten, I think, in 9 games, and then we lost to Newcastle. But the way that people reacted to that, leaving on 74, 75 minutes, it was almost as if to say that we'd been on a relegation, level run of form for a long, long time. And that isn't the case. Harry in the chat says, blame Arteta. I do blame Arteta for some things. I do. I've said it before. I think I'll repeat it because it's what I truly believe. It's not that I can't, people will say, why do you keep saying the same thing? Well, that tells you that I actually believe what I'm saying because I keep repeating it, because from week to week, it feels to me like a really solid theory because it's being proven right time and time again. In our pursuit of control and dominance, in all the elements that Mikel Arteta keeps mentioning post-match, possession, number of shots, field tilt, all of that stuff, XG, etc., we have lost the ability to be spontaneous. We've lost that spark. We've lost that unpredictability. All of that is gone. And that's why we're so easy to defend against right now. It isn't a great watch. It is hard to watch. It is boring. It is frustrating. You are literally turning up these days and watching our centre-backs pass between one another and our wingers go down the wing and then turn back inside because they don't feel that there's anywhere to progress to. So it is draining. It is hard to take and it is frustrating. But, Arsenal have put a lot of pressure on themselves now. I said in the lead up to this game, after the Newcastle game where the mood was on the floor, where, people were really worried, people were really concerned by what they'd seen. And then there were the comments in the lead up to this game where, it was suggested that, transfers were not forthcoming and that Arsenal probably wouldn't end up doing anything major or anything significant. There was a hell of a lot of frustration. And I kept saying that going into this game, if we won it, beating an old rival like Manchester United comfortably, and it's a very bad Man United side, by the way. That's what makes this even more disappointing. If we'd have done that and then gone and beaten Spurs on Wednesday night, the mood would have been up here. People would have felt so much better about the situation. And luckily, and I do think it's luckily, we have Spurs to come because that is a game that whatever you feel about the current state of the team, whatever your feelings towards the manager, whatever you think is the case in terms of who's responsible, you're going to go to that game up for it because it's Spurs in the North London derby. So that kind of does their job for them in terms of getting the team, getting the supporters up for it and getting them behind the team. There isn't going to be an extended allocation for the Spurs fans or anything like that. It's a Premier League game, of course. And hopefully, we can get back on the right track. But whether we do, whether we don't, you are not going to escape the pressure that is on the football club right now to go out and do some business to try and help. And my God, if Gabriel Jesus goes and has a scan tomorrow and we hear that he's going to be out for 3-4 months or for the rest of the season, and Arsenal don't then go and do a bit of business, what is that going to look like? What is that going to look like? It's going to look terrible. Okay, there's disappointment, there's frustration. Some of the things that have happened to us this season have been really unlucky. But what we're seeing right now in terms of that bluntness in front of goal, the style of football becoming all a little bit drab, a little bit predictable and very, very easy to defend against as a consequence. When you think about all of that, it's more than just bad luck. It's more than just bad luck. Are there elements that have contributed to our downfall or demise, if you like, that are out of our control? Absolutely. Does that mean we've had some bad luck? Yes, it does. But this is more than just bad luck. Our patterns of play are predictable. Our finishing is not sharp enough. In other games, we've not created anywhere near enough chances. You can talk about possession, but is it good quality possession? A lot of the time, it's not. You can talk about the volume of shots. But if you have 26 and only 7 of them are on target, then where are you shooting from? And, how accurate is your shooting? Is it at a point where you can say that, you're at the required level? There's so much to unpack here. And look, we are going to bring you some more analysis, of course, over the course of the week. And we are going to start building up to that North London derby very, very soon. Before we do that, though, before I leave you tonight and we focus on, some stories in particular, and obviously that North London derby, I do want to take a load of your questions. Have you got questions? Chuck them in the live chat. Let's get onto some of those now. I guess while you're doing that, I'll just quickly summarize my thoughts. Look, I've said it already. It's more than just bad luck. I understand the frustration. I understand why people are looking at Mikel Arteta. I think he's partly responsible for the fact that this season is heading in the wrong direction. But I don't think he's solely responsible. I think there are other elements at play here. One of them being that bad luck that we've mentioned, but also are these injuries? Are a lot of these injuries? Are some of these injuries down to the fact that we've run some of these players down into the ground in recent seasons? Maybe that's a possibility. Are we going to be able to go out and do some business to help us in a really, really difficult time? That's not solely on Mikel Arteta. And that would be my only kind of defense of him. That would be my only defense of him. Because I do think the buck stops with the manager ultimately. But, you want to sit here. I've seen someone say, I've seen a few people online saying things along the lines of, well, if we don't sign someone in January, I want Arteta sacked. Well, it's not just down to Arteta, is it? People seem to forget that we don't have a sporting director at the moment. We have an interim sporting director, as far as we understand it, in Jason Ato, or, he's filling in or trying to help out with the role that Edu's obviously vacated. But, it feels like some of the issues here are further up the chain. And I'm not surprised that people are starting to question the ownership and some of those people further up the chain. Richie with a super chat, and thank you for being a moderator in the chat, Richie. Really, really do appreciate it. He says, for all the guys saying Arteta out, who would you bring in? That's a great question. That's a great question. And I'd love to know what people think, who people have in mind, because that's one of my big bugbears is when people tell you that something's wrong, but don't offer you any sort of solution. Like, I know a lot of people like that. You're doing it wrong. Okay. Well, how do I do it right then? Oh, it's not for me to say, but you're doing it wrong. Well, tell me the right way. If you don't know the right way, then how do you know I'm doing it wrong? So yeah, give us your managers that you'd like to see come in. Let's see what you guys come up with. I'd love to hear. Right, let's take some of your questions. Before I do that, very, 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 very quickly, there are over 500 of you live in the chat with me on YouTube alone right now, which is unbelievable considering that we did this very last minute.com. Please leave a like on the video. If you can help me get up to like 250 likes, I'll be buzzing. And if you're joining us for the first time or you're not subscribed to the channel here on YouTube, please do. We're on a journey towards 40K. We'd love to get there within the next few months. So please subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on the audio platforms, please do leave us a review as well. That really, really does help. Okay, let's take some of your questions then. Fuad says, fans should put pressure on the board and owners to deliver these signings and not on Arteta. Arteta wants signings and always did. There are options out there. This is my point. And I've made this point for such a long time, I feel like. And I used to make this point in defense of Arsene Wenger. That's how far back this stuff goes. You can say what you want about the manager. You can say what you want about their style of play, their philosophy, the choices they make between one player and another when it comes to actually executing deals. But a lack of spend never comes down to the manager. Managers want the best possible squads available to them. Managers don't look at the club's money like their own money. Maybe Arsene Wenger did at some point. Maybe that was part of why things went the way they did at the back end of his tenure. But Mikel's not that guy. Mikel pushed for us to go and sign Declan Rice for £105 million. This isn't a manager that doesn't want to spend money. So if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you feel like, the club are taking a decision not to go and sign, rather than them being in a position where they simply can't. If you feel like it is a choice that they're not taking up, look at the club before you look at the manager. And it's easy to point at the manager because we don't really have anyone specifically within the club to point at instead. And so the default position is manager, manager, manager. But there are other people making decisions at the football club as well. That's the truth of it. Red Smoke says, "Are you Mikel out?" No, I'm not. We can reevaluate and reassess at the end of the season, but I'm not Mikel out today. I don't think you need to be that knee jerk. And if you did sack him today, then you're definitely putting an end to us achieving anything this season. So no, not for me. Rumble says, "Does this feel like the beginning of the end?" It's hard to say that it's the beginning of the end, I think, at this stage, but it does feel like it has the potential to spiral into the end if we don't arrest the problems. It is what I'd say to that. Temiola says, "Who's to blame for the poverty in our attack? The owners for not investing, or Arteta for overcoaching the team?" A bit of both, mate. Is the answer to that. A bit of both. Because I do think that there is something in the style of play. I've discussed that many, many times on here. You guys know that. But at the same time, when you look at what we've invested in other areas of the pitch in comparison, it's clear that this has not been a priority. And ultimately, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think attackers are the most expensive players, right? Because as I keep saying, they bring you the most valuable commodity in football, which is goals. So is that why there's been a reluctance to go and get an attacker? Is it really a case of the right guy's not been there? I don't know. We'll see. What else have we got in the chat box? Lots of questions about Martin Odegaard and his recent performances. They've not been good enough. It's fair to say, but sometimes players go through difficult periods. Sometimes players go through tough times. And I think that when a player's got credit in the bank, you have to support them. And I think we have to support Martin Odegaard right now. We know what he's capable of. We know how good he is. We know that it's not going his way at the minute. But, we've got to stick with him. We do. We really, really do. What else have we got in the chat? Lots of you throwing the names Simone Inzaghi and Giampiero Gasparini into the chat. Daniel says, "How much of an impact do you feel toxic platforms such as AFTV have on our fan base in influencing the extreme views of our fan base? And is this a big problem for us? What's your view?" I don't think AFTV is toxic. I don't think I'm reluctant to say that like fan media is a bad thing, because ultimately it's been what has allowed me to eventually move into a career in broadcasting. So I'm reluctant to say that. But I do think you get opinions that when they're delivered really, really passionately, spread like mad. And a lot of the time, the substance is lost. And actually, it's the passion that people then buy into. So the point I'm trying to make is he who shouts the loudest often is the one, well, it always is the one that's heard. But it doesn't mean that they're always talking sense. Now, this is not a dig at any AFTV contributor. I know some of them. I like them. I get on with them as people. I think they're really, really good people. But like, I just think that people should be smarter to make their own minds up. Like, I can watch a video of someone ranting and shouting about Arsenal. It's not going to influence my opinion in the slightest. Like, I'll listen to it and I'll take it on board. Then everyone's entitled to their view. But I think people should be smart enough not to be swayed by that type of thing. So is it a big problem for us? It certainly grinds on me and irritates me after games like today. And I'll probably avoid going on social media this evening because I don't want to scroll through and watch clips of people throwing crap around their living room because they've just seen their team concede a goal. Like, sadly, it's an indictment of the world that we live in, that stuff apparently entertains people. That people literally sit at home watching a football match with a laptop open simultaneously, watching someone else. Not just like, I think watch-alongs are great, by the way. I like them. I think they're an alternative way of following a game, and it's really, really interesting stuff. But You're just going to see a load of clips now of people that lost their shit and threw a shoe or something or a TV remote across the room. And people are going to lap that up and love that. For me, it's not my type of thing. Each to their own. I won't judge anyone that watches that type of stuff. But for me, that's not what I want to see after an Arsenal defeat. I want to analyze what went wrong. I want to talk about what's happened. I want to talk about potential solutions. Sam Allardyce's name has come up as a potential manager. There you go. Joe says, bring in Arsene Wenger. He says, I'm joking. Just trying to bring some humor to a rubbish day. Yeah, nice one. Wesbird says, don't you think that after going so close last season, it was imperative going into this season that we had an injection of quality players to elevate us and show the current squad ambition and lift them? Yeah, and we talked a lot about the window, and we talked about it as being a kind of floor-raising window. And I do think it's kind of been successful in that sense. Like Calafiori's a good squad option, and he's a squad option because he's never bloody fit. Mikel Merino is a decent squad option as well. But I mean, let's talk about Mikel Merino for a second, because to me, like, he offered very, very little today. Like, really, really little. Like, I was on the fence about the signing in the first place. As those of you that watch and listen to this regularly will know, I said at the time that for me, when he came in, he wasn't a guaranteed starter. And I was laughed at for saying that. People really criticized me for saying that. But he played 73 minutes today, 30 touches, a 67% pass accuracy for a midfielder. It's not good enough. Created one big chance, had a couple of shots blocked. Won 4 of his 7 ground duels, won just 1 of his 3 aerial duels, lost possession 9 times. The stats don't paint a pretty picture of what we saw from Mikel Merino today. And that is in keeping, I think, with what my eye test told me as well. Akin Gugbe with a super chat. Thank you so much, mate. Really, really appreciate it. He's responding to the question earlier on about who would replace Mikel Arteta in the event that he was to lose his job. He's come up with Simone, Inzaghi, Zidane, Alonso, and then he says, where did Liverpool find Slot? Don't tell me there are no managers out there. I don't think anybody's saying that there are no managers out there. Like, there are lots of managers out there. The point is, you know, who are you going to get now? Like, come the summer, it's different story, different conversation. I probably won't be sitting here in the summer saying that Mikel Arteta absolutely has to go, even if we fail to win a trophy. If there's a massive drop-off in terms of everything and we crumble completely different, and maybe we'll look at it through a slightly different lens come that point. But right now, I don't envisage myself sitting there being one of those, Arteta's got to go now, guys. That ain't me, right? I'm not saying that there aren't other good managers out there, but this mid-season stuff, like, it just don't work. Like, you know, if you think the season is hanging by a thread right now, it's going to be even worse when another manager comes in, let's say tomorrow, and tries to take on a team that have been playing one way, been coached one way, and try and reinvent the wheel. Look at Ruben Amorim. It's taken him how many games? And only in the last 2 have you seen Manchester United actually do all right. And you didn't think it could get any worse from where it was with Erik ten Hag, but it takes time for managers to get their ideas across. And that's why I'm against this chat of replacing him now. Let's talk about it in the summer. If the season goes badly, we'll talk about it in the summer. But right now, no way. Nobody's saying, by the way, that, you know, there are no good managers out there. Of course there are. What else have we got? Rumble says Mikel Arteta has labeled these guys the best owners in the world, and you're telling me that's not a company man who's happy to be there. No, listen, because he says one thing publicly doesn't mean that that's his belief. It doesn't mean that he's not frustrated with maybe what's going on upstairs. You couldn't possibly know that. But this is the thing that I always find rich and I always find ironic. Yeah, like, a lot of people say this to me as well. They say, well, you know, you're a company man, or, you know, you're this or you're that. How many of you, people that don't work in football, let's say, how many of you would go on social media or go and give a public interview in which you publicly criticized, dressed down your boss? How many would do it? You wouldn't do it. Let's say you work for Tesco. Would you go on social media and say, Tesco is a rip-off, worst supermarket in the world? Would you do that? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do it from fear of losing your job. And it's the same with everybody. Just because people don't publicly criticize it doesn't mean that frustrations do not exist. And that's something that I think people need to do better in understanding. Like, it ain't rocket science. I don't get why that's so hard to get your head around. Let's take this one from Alan. Do you think if we get a world-class finisher or striker, we pretty much have a complete team? And it was all a plan all along to build from the back. I think the plan was to build from the back. That's evident. That has always been the case. But now we need to add that final piece. I really do believe that. In fact, I don't even think it's one final piece. Like, I think we need to add a top quality left winger. I don't think we have one. I think we've got good left wingers, but not a top draw one. I don't think we've got a top quality left 8. Like, unless you include Declan Rice as an 8 rather than a 6. I know a lot of people still see him as a 6. Depends where you put Declan Rice in the picture. But there's still 2 or 3 pieces missing. And that's always going to be the case because you're always striving for perfection. But a striker is really, really important. Good attackers are really, really important because why? It's not rocket science, guys. They win you games. So, yeah. Let me take a couple more before I sign out. It's been a long old day. I've been working from first thing in the morning all the way through until now. Lots of Arteta must go stuff in the live chat as predicted, I guess. Out here says, just because you're happy with mediocre doesn't mean someone else has to be. Who's happy with mediocre? Again, I come back to the same principle that I keep applying to the Mikel Arteta discussion. Who doesn't want to win? Everybody wants to win. We're all pulling in the same direction. We're all wanting the same thing. And that's why I get annoyed when a result creates this kind of divide within our fan base. Shouldn't be the case. Simply shouldn't be the case. Look, I'm going to summarize by saying that it's, as I said already, more than just bad luck. The squad building hasn't been right. We are bottom heavy and we are struggling badly with injuries right across the pitch at the moment. That has to be taken into consideration. But do we still have enough within the ranks to be producing better than what we're currently seeing? I truly believe we do. And that's where the frustration kicks in. And I understand it and I get it. Arsenal need to go and reinforce that attack even more so now after that Gabriel Jesus injury today. And if they don't, it's going to go down like a lead balloon. And you know that the criticism is going to increase. You know that the mood is going to get worse. It's going to impact the atmosphere in the stadium. It's going to impact people wanting to go to the games. So, you know, there's a potential huge knock-on effect if Arsenal don't do what I think they should do in the window. And listen, if it can't be the blockbuster signing that we all want, then it's got to be one that is going to work. And people keep saying, well, who's out there? And there aren't always options. And Arteta says things like, you know, it's got to be a player that's going to make us better. Well, it's your job, maybe not Arteta specifically, but it's your job as a football club to go and find that player. That's what you're there for. Your job is to identify these players. It's part of the recruitment process, scouting. Go and find these players. They exist. There are plenty of great footballers out there. You just got to go and find them and get the deals done. And it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be Alexander Isak. It doesn't need to be Victor Gyökeres. It needs to be someone that can help the team. And nobody's going to convince me that there's no one out there that can do that, given the struggles we are currently having. Thank you all so much for joining me. Just want to quickly remind you guys, as always, that this podcast is partnered with NordVPN, the best VPN service out there. It's a service that I personally can't do without anymore. Whether you're looking to stream your favorite movies or the football, NordVPN is, of course, the one for you. It is a game changer, and you can sign up via the link in the description. Visit nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC for a mega discount of 4 months free at the end of your plan. Not only does it give me extra protection when surfing the web, downloading or streaming, but I now have the ability to access geo-blocked content by changing my virtual location with just the click of a button. Sign up now via nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC and take advantage of this amazing offer. Plus, with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, it's totally risk-free. You won't regret it. nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. Also want to let you know that our YouTube videos are in partnership with Stocks FC, and just to kind of highlight how my day has gone on Stocks FC. And just to be clear, by the way, if you can't afford to do this, don't do it. It isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It is an opportunity to buy stocks and shares in the players that you enjoy watching, and hopefully make a bit of profit if you play it right. You can earn weekly dividend payments, and Stocks FC are in partnership with the Chronicles of Aguna at the moment. If you use the QR code bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can get 5 free loan stocks, and you'll be eligible for dividend payments on those 5 loan stocks, so you don't have to put any money in for the first month. A couple of my players, Gabriel Martinelli, his value has decreased off the back of today's performance and result. Kai Havertz has gone down by 14%, which isn't good news for me. Hopefully there'll be an upturn, and hopefully the portfolio can look a lot healthier. But Stocks FC, check it out. Claim your 5 free stocks now. Have a play with it. Have a go, and let me know what you think. Okay, thank you all so much for bearing with me. It wasn't the best planned podcast today because, of course, it's off the cuff. It's on the night of the event. And yeah, it's late on this Sunday evening, and I'm looking forward to having a late dinner and getting some sleep. I will see you all back here on the podcast at some point on Monday, probably later on in the day. I'm sure there'll be plenty to discuss. It's Arsenal. That's the way it goes. Thank you all so much for your support. Like on the way out, subscribe, all the rest of it. And I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Goodbye.